Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back. So apparently, while we have police personnel flashing their wieners at random females, particularly someone who works at a sheriff department, you also have garbage trucks now spying on you, where municipalities are putting a lot of funds and attaching AI cameras to garbage vehicles to take images of you, your activities, and the property, which, to be fair, based on plain view doctrine, and if it's in a public space, it cannot be trespassed. But nevertheless, AI is now collecting the data of you and your property while this is happening.
A subject matching your description. Blue jeans, blue sweatshirt. Yep. Walking around with his penis out. Blue jeans, blue sweatshirt. Yep. Walking around with his penis out.
Okay.
So we first learned the fact that FedEx has a contract with Flock to attach Flock cameras on their vehicle to basically track your buying pattern, habits, spending, and whereabouts stored in a database you have no idea about. So usually when you upload your own information, for whatever reason, they tell you for face value that it will be stored in their database for a certain period of time and then deleted. Whether or not they actually did so, you have no idea. But that's just what they're telling you. Even worse, in these circumstances, you don't know where it's going, which data broker the information is going to, and how it's being used, whether for predictive policing or AI training, or maybe even worse than you think. And again, as a reminder, while all that is going on, this is also going on by a police personnel who's trained, armed, and is tasked with the supposition of enforcing the law.
So, yeah, you work for the sheriff's department? Okay, what do you do there?
4119,
Why'd you lie to me?
Southwest 4119,
My
1519.
wife finding out I was not at work when I said I was.
Quite nonchalant, isn't it? While that is also going on, we have this. A police chief in Sedgwick, Kansas, used Flock Safety license plate reader to track his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend's vehicle 228 times over 4+ months and use his police vehicle to follow them out of town, according to a city official in a report released by the agency that oversees police certifications. On the note of certifications, I went over the real point of this on Tier 4 meeting back in 2024, where people are providing outcries about defunding the police. That's really never going to happen. The everyday man and woman support funding police in ways they can never imagine, where even if it's never formally provided outwards, grants are provided to them through all the several organizations and lobbyists based on the leftover tax and unclaimed funds in the state, and on a federal level based on federal contracts that these local municipal police departments sign up for, apply for, and wins these contracts. So if you really want to do anything when it comes to each individual that works in the police department, look into how to remove their certification. That right there is what you should be looking at. So while yet another police is using these AI cameras that the majority of people have no idea the terms and conditions of the contract and who got paid what, behind closed doors by the private corporations like Palantir and their subsidiaries that work with Flock and produce and manufacture and distribute and market these Flock cameras, it's more along with other corporations, side by side with agreements of municipalities. While people are not aware of those private contracts and all those silent council meetings going on, you also have other police personnel that are assumed to be out there because they are tasked with enforcing the law, stalking people using these technological luxuries. So I've always mentioned, it's not the technology that's the problem. It's the people behind it. Technology cannot think for itself and can never act for itself absent of human provocation. It is just a tool. It is the one behind that tool that we ought to look at, which is what baffles me when people complain over and over again about this buzzword AI, AI, AI. The AI, the artificial intelligence itself, was never, is not, and will never be the problem. The ones behind control of the behavior of that AI are the ones you need to look at. The first stage most people miss, in the stage of an outcry, is they buy the concept of placeholders and thus are holding the wrong things liable. As a result of that, they basically waived everything that they have as a claim in the first instance because they have their back completely turned at the ones they should be pointing at, while the one who's truly guilty just casually walks away and tiptoes while rubbing their hands like DJ Khaled does, in their mind saying another one. Meaning they just got another one over the average man and woman. They just pull the wool over their eyes. The Nier guard admitted to misusing Flock while he was being investigated for an unrelated misconduct case, a SEGBIC official said. He then resigned. The license plate reader alert officers of specific license plates and vehicle types they might be looking for. Alright, this technology has existed long before people even started speaking of AI and all that stuff. Police can also use the system to search for vehicles. The search function now exists en masse, whereby all you have to do is travel within a certain radius of any type of police vehicle or a stationary location where these artificial intelligence are placed in. It goes into a headquarters and corroborated with other database from data brokers. This is the reason why the database injunction exists. When that video on database injunction was done back in 2022 or 2023, these were the things that were perceived ahead of time. Oh, and if I may remind you, while all that is going on, one of your beloved, trusted police personnel is doing this.
And then I saw you walk over here, and you were looking back that way, and then you kind of started to run for a second this way. Why was that?
I have no clue.
Okay. Because I think you started to run this way, saw me, and then you stopped running.
So I was thinking about this a lot last night because one of the officers asked me, "Are you sure it was his penis?" And I was like, yeah.
Okay.
And then I started to think, well, I suppose it could have been a strap-on dildo that he was wearing through his pants.
Mm-hmm.
But it was certainly an erect penis that was very, and this is why I noticed, because it was a very white compared to his pants.
Got it.
Like, that's what caught my eye.
The credit of this next article goes to a nonprofit organization called Cow Matters, where the bean was spilled by the horse's mouth itself. A spokesperson for Riverside County Sheriff's Office wrote in an email that it is common practice for deputies to create personal hot list tracking license plates, and that all deputies are able to create such lists. In other words, not just a database only, not just artificial intelligence training, not just the dossiers sold to data brokers and other private corporations for likely nefarious reason and something probably worse that you and I have yet to imagine, but also they're able to personalize it and make hot list out of it to say, we are after you. No warrant, no formal hearing for said warrant, no constitutional requirements, no due diligence, just a hot list based on collected data that is then corroborated with other privately sold intimate information about you. That is the reality going on in 21st century. So-called first world, supposedly free of the same thing that many people use as buzzword when they say, for instance, Nazi, or they use the word I'm inviting you to come join the patron page. Not only do you get access to documents, posts, and videos that you will never find on any other platforms, you also get instant access to webinars that otherwise will cost far more. And we speak of things that usually we would not be able to speak of on any other platforms far more freely. On top of that, you get the opportunity to send me monthly questions. Fascism, or they use the word swastika, even though those guys that are generally assumed to be associated with those buzzwords, when they were alive, during their time and their height and their peak of activity, they actually denounced all those three terms, and they never even used any of those terms to refer to themselves. But let's just say that is what we've been fed as the reality of it, and everyone accepts it. And everyone says, those are the bad guys. It is then reasonable to give the benefit of the doubt that everyone making such assertion have at least looked into the history of how those aforementioned three buzzwords came about, to the point where we point to certain people as the bad guy relating to those buzzwords. And when you look at how they enforce those things that we see as bad, this is exactly how they did it. But through tracking and creating hot lists and dossiers. This is how they can go into people's houses. If you've watched movies and read journals and read letters from those time periods and other well-documented cases that these movies are created out of, you will see that they were able to just casually go into people's house, line them up, and have their way with them. You can imagine. In other cases, intercept people traveling from one point to the other based on dossier, but not just any dossier, personal hot list. Now that is exasperated in today's world with the assistance of artificial intelligence. The article goes on to say, asked about vague justification attached to some lists, they wrote, open quote, these entries are related to criminal investigation, close quote. The Riverside County Sheriff Office did not respond to questions about whether some deputy hot list violated policy. Now remember, each police department, whether it's your local municipal or on a sheriff level or on a state police level or on a federal level, whatever policy they have exists because it is meant to be uniform with the supreme law of the land, which is the federal constitution. And if it's a state or a county or a local city, state, borough, police department, then the respective state constitution, which for the most part has uniform language with the federal one, albeit there are standard tests and element as operation and interpretation of those, which we went over in videos such as these. Which I think the average man and woman probably should comprehend. Part of that being the new emergency exception added as an extension of exigent circumstance, where if there's an assumption that there's a requirement of medical help, or if one is a danger to themselves or someone else, then no warrant is required to get into a personal place of abode. We went over that in this tier 4 meeting on the patron page. In some states like Ohio now, there are now requirements whereby outside of plain view doctrine, outside of reasonable articulable suspicion that came about through the good old Terry versus Ohio and other cases that sort of aligned with it, outside of those criterias as standard test and element to qualify the Fourth Amendment and some other aspect, some states like Ohio are now saying, well, under any circumstance, if you refuse to provide an identification during any traffic stop, then you are guilty. Simple as that. Now, something tells me it would eventually be ruled as unconstitutional, but probably not before someone or some people get screwed over. Because usually things like that are quite silent and go under the radar. While all that is going on, keep in mind, that this is also going on.
Got it. It was very white compared to his pants. There was a definite contrast.
Right.
Okay. So it was, you're saying it's white or light in color. Okay. All right. That's helpful. And it's,
Because that is what caught my eye, was that color contrast.
Yeah.
Where color contrast should not be.
yep. And to you, did
And
it
I
look,
could see top of pants and then that.
okay. And it was
like out of the fly.
out of the fly. Yeah. That's what you mentioned. I think the Sergeant Colster at the time when you talked to him. And did it appear real?
I can't say that I was super interested in
Right. I know you didn't want to, glance. You didn't want to.
visual analysis.
Yes.
More in disbelief, like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? This can't be really happening. No, I think this is really happening.
Right.
And as I'm running by, and so seeing it in profile, very straight.
Okay.
So for whatever that's worth.
Okay. But is it fair? I mean, just from talking to you yesterday, you made it clear that it was completely erect, and it's fair that it appeared to be real to you.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing that I was thinking last night is that, okay, even if it is a dildo,
Mm-hmm.
that's still not cool
Of course not.
to be walking around town with that sticking out of your pants.
Right.
Like that's conveying the same essence.
And I know, as ridiculous it might sound, the reality is you do have quite some deviant out here, that positions of public trust funded by private interest, which effectively makes them private entities and private corporations. Based on the clear view doctrine, you have individuals in set positions who are just straight deviants that have gotten so comfortable because the everyday man and woman are so aloof. They are so distracted, and those that are not distracted would rather just ignore it and just hope it disappears and wither away into nothingness. When in truth, the problem is getting stronger. These deviants in a position of public trust have gotten so comfortable to the point where instead of them being at work, they say, you know what, screw it. The excitement and the rush of being out there towing the firearm and, being in a position of assumed authority that was once lacked as a child and the need to compensate for it is not enough. Some people out there have decided what now has to be done is to go out there and wank off with a hard wiener in front of random women while they're clocked in, while they have a wife and a child at home who thinks they are at work.
So, here's the deal. This has nothing to do with what you guys stopped me for today. I'm supposed to be at work. Alright. I told my wife I was supposed to be at training today. I didn't want to go to work. I took a vacation. She just thinks I'm at work.
4970.
Okay.
Just 4670.
That's about
So
it.
you're playing hooky right now?
Yes, exactly. And she thinks I'm at work because I didn't want to stay home with the kids, and so I had the babysitter come out.
Yep.
And that's where we're at.
Okay. So you have your full name then?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
Troy.
4534, I can find another organization.
Allen. A-L-L-E-N. White, just like the color. 10/31/86.
And you obviously don't want your wife to know what's going on.
Kind of why we're here.
Protecting the citizens. And the guy just casually accepted, yeah, that's well right. Wanking up for the public with a hard rock. Yep, the caller was about right.
All right, here's the deal. So we're going to run you to the Sheriff's Department. Going to P&P you there, take you to Ottawa County, lodge on false info, indecent exposure, $100 bond for each.
Okay.
So you'll be able to post bond tonight. I'm going to tell you you're going to get suspended when we get down to the Sheriff's Department here. We're going to meet with Lieutenant Van Single. She has questions in regards to your vehicle and whether your tax stuff is in your vehicle.
Okay.
A member of the Sheriff Department, that is. And Sheriff Department is relatively the closest method of policing in a form of public trust that is likely the most constitutional as far as a constitutional form of government goes, and the history of how public trust naturally interface in the 50 states. I can't speak of every other so-called Western world or so-called first world, but in the 50 states, the sheriff departments are what you might consider the first line of policing to securing constitutional guarantees before you can even consider your local town of a village of or whatever it is. And within those sheriff departments now, in 21st century, you do have deviants who those badges and uniform is just not enough, that they have to take it off and just go out there with a hard dick and just show it to somebody. Not sure what's going on with him at home with his wife or his other, personal stuff, but God bless his soul and hope he gets some help. But while all that is going on, this is also going on. In the Riverside license plate hot list data examined by Cal Matters, over 90% of the license plate entries added to tracking in July and August left the case field blank, which would have been prohibited under the bill. What bill? Senate Bill 274, which would have limited the kind of license plate monitoring list agencies can use to those related to missing persons, or a license plate list maintained by the National Crime Information Center or California Department of Justice. So, that which was meant to naturally help people is generally assumed to keep a society that's based on law and order. That same tool by those who have just gone gung-ho. The same applies with the issue of artificial intelligence and these flock cameras. Oh, and also, while all that is going on with the hard rock deviants and the stalkers checking out their ex-girlfriends move about,
using the flock database for personal business.
And he's not alone. Within the last few months, at least 10 other members of law enforcement around the state have been charged with the same.
And other people creating hot lists. And other people creating hot lists using things that was meant to protect rather than be used to classify people as what they are not, absent of Fourth Amendment requirements and its qualifying elements. This is also going on. Your good old OpenAI ChatGPT that everyone loves has had an agreement with the Department of War, aka the Department of Defense. The question you have to ask is, why is a big private corporation, which poses itself as non-profit originally, why is it creating contracts with a department of government that is based on military powers? See, on the one hand, it's very easy to say, it's just speculation. But when the party involved themselves just come and directly tell you what's going on, what then do you say at that point? But to be forced to face reality.
Okay.
If the creators of this thing we call ChatGPT are doing this, then know very well that good old Google, that has the sensor vault for geolocation tracking of your devices, some Google advertisement ID, and backdoor viruses placed into all Android and Apple devices, and all these other entities and websites now embedding AI into their websites. They're trying to get to this level. They are corroborating databases with personal identifying information with one another, and they are contracting with one another. Ultimately, that trickles down to this. A point comes where a group of people in any given nation state enjoys the privileges of bullying others in other parts of the world. Cool, look, there's a benefit to that. You enjoy certain things. Let's all be honest here. But the body policy that does that, that faces outwards its heat enforce, at some point we'll realize it can only do that for so long because others will not stand for it. So what does it need to do? Because all it's been conditioned to do is to constantly eat flesh over and over. So it turns on the ones that it was meant to protect, which are its own citizens. That is what you are slowly looking at here, that a large group of adults, reasonable adults, intelligent adults, are willingly participating in every day. Oh, and let's not forget, while all that is going on, this is also happening as amended by House Committee. Senate Bill number 372 in the state of Kansas, an act concerning consumer protection. So now the assumption is, hey, we're going to keep using the same buzzwords that's emotionally stimulating. We have to protect someone or something, so long as it is purported and presented that this is for the purpose of protection. It likely will make it easier to basically screw people over because the people would rather go to sleep anyway. And when they hear this word protection, they let their guard down. Therefore, an act concerning consumer protection, even though consumer, according to many cultures around the world, is not necessarily a term of endearment to carry around like a badge of honor. For the sake of being considerate, we'll just leave that one be. An act concerning consumer protection, enacting the App Store Accountability Act, regulating the App Store and developer operations with respect to minors. So now we're also protecting those frail, young, naive minors, as though adults got it figured out too, right? Because if adults really got it figured out up to this point, the world would be perfect, right? And sure enough, the world is perfect. So let's leave the adults alone and just make those minors the victim. And therefore, since we've delegated them as the victim, even though the real predators are just getting away with it and they're televising it. But anyway, we're just going to say, hey, look, the minors are the victim. And we're going to play superhero that no one really asked for. And the real thing that ought to be performed proactively is just ignored. That's called plutocracy. To protect consumers and to protect minors, as far as technology is involved, when it comes to those who create certain apps that are distributed through different app stores, which, as a side note, if you're not using APK Pure or things like Aurora Store or phones that don't have Google IDs on them, which, by the way, don't use it for social media because those social medias are data aggregators for other data brokers, and they do have policies. If you read these social media policies, they're up to a few thousand pages long. Those that are secretive and those that are clear, they let you know if you don't allow us to take your data, it will ban your account. So just as a side note, don't use those types of secure devices for social media. Social media anyway was never meant to be something personalized to you anyway. It appalls me when people place all their personal lives out there. Unless you're using it as a marketing method, then I don't see why the everyday man and woman should be doing that anyway. But nevertheless, your personal life should be based on secure devices. And all the other regular devices, sure, use it for social media. So all this should not even apply to you in your personal life anyway, if you know the proper devices to use. And how to separate yourself from identifying factors of those who always want to know everything about you while they stay hidden in the shadows, hoping you don't see or hear anything about them. So to protect the consumers and the minors when it comes to app stores and technology, and create a requirement for age verification and parental consent. So now we want to make sure that in order to protect these minors, we must verify age, providing for enforcement under Kansas Consumer Protection Act. So now that which a lot of people say it's what benefits them is, consumers, is also now being used as the pathway, the entry, the medium for the same thing that would act as a detriment, which is, in short, this entire Senate Bill 372 is basically saying you must now provide an ID to prove to us that you're not a minor before you can download stuff on your device or even use your device. Now, there are other legislatures that wants to enforce it at an operating system level, which in many ways Microsoft have been doing with their TPM chip and some of their GPUs. But thankfully, this particular bill on April 10, 2026 died on House calendar and was never passed. I'm showing Kansas as one state, but many other states are attempting to follow this footstep. For instance, Colorado, Senate Bill 26-051, age attestation on computing device. So you now see a dynamic of what's going on, or at least I hope you do, right? Where someone is using technological luxuries to stalk you, to create a database on you, and to put you on a hot list, which is a predictive policing and other harsh terms that we're not going to mention or use here to not put people on high alert, but nevertheless inform them, because merely being alert is not the same as being well informed, nor to make well informed decisions. I am not here to alarm you or to alert you. I'm here to inform you about the dynamics of what's going on. And the dichotomy is as follows. Technology is being used against you in sophisticated ways to violate the essence of what constitutes you, which is what just that federal and state constitution is. It just affirms what's already you. Meanwhile, you, the average people, are being told you cannot use technology, even in the most menial way, unless you voluntarily waive your Fourth Amendment right. Because, and here's the justification as a whole, because there are victims in society and parents don't know how to do their jobs anymore, apparently. I'm not the one saying this. That is the fine line that's clearly written up here and can be said to be the implied mechanism here. Parents don't know how to do their jobs. They're victims in society, and albeit the real predators are just walking scot-free. So therefore, we have to find someone to call the bad guys. And guess who that is? You, the majority of people that exist, just waking up, going by your daily life, minding your business. Therefore, everyone must now waive their Fourth Amendment right and their First Amendment right of association, and to those who it may apply to based on your religious instructions and belief of your religion. That's also put to the side also. And let's not forget the Ninth Amendment reservation to the people. Because we're now saying we're going to put into legislation to force you to present ID to even use any computer. In short, the intent here is to bar you from technological luxuries while someone is using the same against you. A practical example of that outside of speculation and feel-good talk is Colorado Legislature Senate Bill 26-051. Summary. The bill requires application developers to receive user age information and use it to comply with any applicable law. Now, they know on an individual level, people might resist. So therefore, they just go to the people that create the applications that you, the everyday people, use on your phone and force them to collect your data before you can even use the application itself. That's a cold game right there. And while they're at it, they are spending your good old tax money. You know how people say I'm a taxpayer and they're happy about it? Yeah, that's great. That's beautiful. If you qualify for taxes, you must satisfy it. Now, whether or not bragging about it is a beneficial thing to you based on how it's used, that's another story. At Colorado, beginning January 1, 2028, the bill requires operating system providers to collect a user's birth date or age during account setup and generate an age range indicator that can be shared with applications. And by default, what the internet was designed to be in the first place, and what you consider to be your own personal device, is not yours anymore. The intent here is to make the internet not private and not a free market, as it was intentionally provided for through the Nelnet and whatnot after the military uses the intranet, and a version of that is now being used as the internet. The intent of it is not free market and anonymity anymore. The intent of it is to know who you are on an operational system level that attaches to everything you're going to be doing through applications. Providers must make this age signal available to application developers through a standardized, meaning uniform, real-time technical interface. Real-time, meaning everything you be doing on your device, someone will be looking at it and seeing it live. So now you say you're using VPN, right? You figured out that, okay, some VPN companies can still be subpoenaed and your information can be retrieved from them. So you found a VPN company that does not even collect the data in the first place, let alone go through the battle of attempting to refuse to give it to anyone who subpoenas it. So now, okay, you found some extent of privacy through the gateways and the ports of VPNs and whatnot, because the one providing that service does not even collect any data. But they are trying to circumvent even that by saying, well, that device itself, the hardware itself that you are utilizing before you even install the software VPN, we will know the data on it and we will monitor everything you are doing live. On it. That's what they're trying to do here, while limiting the information shared to only what is necessary and prohibiting use of disclosure for unrelated purposes. See this vague last part? No one knows what it really means. No one knows what the definition of unrelated purposes. No one knows what definition of information shared and what necessary and prohibited use is. No one really knows what that is. It's very vague. All those are usually in private contracts. And then they provide them a threat that if you don't collect this data from the average people as operating system creators and developers of app, they will charge you this certain amount of money, which was kind of sort of what happened in 2020, where store owners have said, hey, if people don't wear masks, we'll charge you and fine you, even though there's no state legislature that mandates people to put these things on their respective faces. And because we know there's no state legislature, we will now force you to force your fellow everyday people to do so under the threat of basically digging into your pocket. Right. That's how bullies, mafias, and all those guys work. That's how extortionists do things. And it's being done on pen and paper. If you're at Colorado and you want to keep track of what was just read and how it would forever change not your own life, but the lives of the future generation who will be born into a form of serfdom. See, I don't like using the term dystopian world because it's still kind of vague and it still sounds as though you just gave up and you're just whining and crying about it. Let's just say it as it is. It's serfdom. You should keep track of it. You should do something about it. The good part is they show you the names. They show you the chronology of the dates of the activities on a public-facing website. They show you the representatives involved, their clients, who they work for, meaning the lobbyists, and their positions in there. If you are at Colorado, you should start writing letters to any of your legislative representatives. You should start speaking up because this will affect you. And you can't say they never showed you the process of when it was at its peak. They give you the chronology of what was going on. So ask yourself, do you know the 16 stages of how legislatures are passed? Do you know that based on the right of redress of grievance and right to petition, that you have the ability to influence how legislatures are passed? Then it gives you all the text involved too. One of the technological luxuries you have is this thing called the internet itself, where you physically have the whole world in the palm of your hands. Speak up and do something before it is too late. Over the years, in speaking with close to 1,200 people in their respective circumstance, I've looked back at the data, and it turns out about 70%, a little over 70%, about 71.5% to be exact, of the people that deal with information when it comes to securing what is theirs and properly enforcing it, whether they realize that's what they're trying to do or not. Of those people, 70% of them are looking for something very particular. The other 30% are just exploring it just because it's fun. But of those 70% of about 1,200 people looking for something very specific, only about 13% of them are actually successful before they came in contact with me. And I've noticed that the reason is because the majority of them have spent a lot of time of their lives being taken advantage of, and thereafter followed some guru based on speculations, which is a semblance of the thing they attempted to avoid in the first place. With that said, I'm emphasizing here that this is not guruship, and this is definitely not a shortcut feel-good environment like most people have been fed when it comes to what they perceive as some unique special information that no one else knows about. When in truth, what they think is unique that no one else knows about is just a misconstrued version of what actually really exists. That sure, not many know about it, but even they themselves have it all twisted. So what's done at subtle substance is not based on instant gratification, and there is a primary element of self-responsibility. So if this sounds like something you are one with, then the Subtle Club on the Patreon page is the way. There's a yearly discount that's currently going on Patreon if you join the Subtle Club for a year. So take advantage of it. Similarly, that has been going on in another place like Idaho. It's S1299 regular session to follow the same steps of digital identification. For those in Idaho, the same thing is being planned. But at Idaho, it's a bit different. If you look at the same Senate Bill 1299 when it comes to digital identification, similar to what we've just read in the prior state of Colorado, it was introduced around February this year, and it was passed. In April, it was signed into law, Session Law Chapter 250. This is what happens when people don't know about what is rightfully theirs and they remain aloof. It became effective as of July 1st, 2026 at Idaho. You need to start speaking up. You need to start doing something. When I made a video not too long ago that something is coming that'll be worse than even the 2020 C-19 thing that will change the future forever, this is a huge part of it. On a similar note, state of New York. So now you see there's a concert here. There's a uniform intent that's been executed in a very, very shrewd and planned manner. While everyone else is casually going by their day doing whatever it is that they're doing, all of this is going on. A thing that causes a lot of people to yell USA, USA. It has been dying slowly, methodically. And all those people that usually chanted are still chanting USA, clueless about what is going on. As far as New York goes, and what the outcome is so far, I would leave this be. I would not go over it because I want people to actually do their own due diligence. Lay their eyes in these black and white. Read it, feel the spirit behind it, and see how it truly affects them. You need to read this, regardless of whether you are in New York, regardless of whether you do business around, at, or in New York. It would eventually trickle to wherever you may be. because this is a concerted effort. At New York, it is 81028. One of the main reasons why I'm actually reading the one in New York is something very important. If you look at the way they started this bill, it stated an act to amend the general business law in relation to device level age assurance, meaning digital ID. Hey, we want to make sure you're not a minor, so give us your ID before you start using that thing that you bought that you call your property and your device. In other words, you're assumed guilty from the start. Why? Because there's a guise that someone is vulnerable out there, therefore you must be assumed to be guilty. So give us your ID. And we're going to put it in our database, and don't worry what we do with it, whether we sell it or not. Just give it to us because you're assumed guilty. And in doing so, they use your power, the people, against you. The people of the state of New York, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. That is to say, ultimately, you have the say. You must not be complacent. You must not be quiet and allow your power and your name and your position to be misrepresented in a way that is a detriment to you. Oh, and also, while all that is going on, remember we started off with a garbage truck? Yeah, don't worry. Those bills, when it comes to making sure that your technology that you use to contact other humans, the speed and network of communication and technological luxury, being bound and limited and tracked and guaranteed so that you don't even have any freedom at all. While all that is going on, your garbage truck is about to start spying on you. Your car already did and got fined for it, even though the concept of fining large corporations really means nothing. It's almost as though you're encouraging big companies when you fine them, because you're saying, all right, we acknowledge the concept of personhood, and no one is held personally liable for the damages that's been done. We're just gonna now just say, hey, pay you this amount, which usually is less than half of 1% of the fiscal profit of that entity. And who that money goes to is not the people. It doesn't go to the people. It just somehow disappears into thin air. But hey, they got fined though. If it goes to the state of so-and-so or the federal level, well, guess what they use it on? Contract with private corporations. The credit of this article goes to Yahoo News. It was released Friday, July 10, 2026. Cape Coral, Florida. So you see how it's going from one state to the other. California, Kansas, Colorado, Idaho, Ohio, New York. Cape Coral, Florida is looking at a proposal to strap AI-powered cameras onto its garbage trucks. As the trucks roll their normal routes, the camera would scan yards and houses, fronts for code violations, overgrown grass, illegal dumping, peeling paint, the usual blight. So don't know whether there's a false positive, how well these AIs have been trained for it to be able to be used this way. If it's been trained to be able to be used this way, then that means they must have been using those AIs or gathering data in the first place, absent of the people knowing about it and how the things that relates to them is being run. Were there any council meetings discussing this before they started saying they're gonna try to strap AI-powered cameras in garbage? For you to use that AI, it must have first been trained, used in that particular way. Did people know it was being trained at that point? Were there any gatherings to inform the people about it? That's another issue. But nevertheless, hey, Cape Coral, Florida is planning to basically strap AI-powered cameras to basically say you've done something wrong, and who are you going to point to? Who's going to cross-reference it? If you call, someone is just going to tell you, or an AI is going to pick up the call and tell you, well, we verified that you are wrong and you violated it, therefore shut up and pay up. Arm's length methods are being used to screw people over. People used to complain about long hold times and calls when they call entities. Don't worry, that might not exist anymore because AIs would have been pre-programmed to deal with you a certain way, which is 10 times and infinitely worse than waiting on that long hold to actually speak with someone who will manually look at the situation and comprehend the fine-tuned details not only on the human level, but also use their own deductive reason outside of a fixed parameter. Even the typical man or woman who goes to work to give the least effort because they're tired of doing the same job in their lives would still at least put some effort into it compared to a bot who's been told to do certain things based on if-then circumstances. City leaders are framing it as a staffing fix. Code enforcement department are chronically understaffed, and a camera riding along on a truck that is already driving the route costs less than a human inspector driving a second route just to look for the same thing. That is the announcement. It is not the story. The real story is what happens to data once it exists, and car owners have already lived through the exact version of it, and goes into General Motors and the issue of privacy and data violations. So while all those aforementioned things are going on, your garbage truck is about to start spying on you. Lastly, I'll leave you with this. Carpenter versus United States. Mapping all cell phones' location over the course of a certain period of time provides an all-encompassing record of the holder's whereabouts. As with GPS information, the time-stamped data provides an intimate window into a person's life, revealing not only his particular movements, but through them his familial, political, professional, religious, and sexual associations. These location records holds for many Americans the privacies of life. Quoting Riley and Boyd. Unlike GPS monitoring, cell phone tracking is remarkably easy, cheap, and efficient compared to traditional investigative tools. With just the click of a button, the government can access each carrier's deep repository of historical location information at practically no expense. In fact, historical cell site records present even greater privacy concerns than the GPS monitoring of a vehicle we considered in Jones. Unlike the bugged container in the car, a cell phone, almost a feature of human anatomy, tracks nearly exactly the movement of its owner. While individuals regularly leave their vehicles, they compulsively carry cell phones with them all the time. A cell phone faithfully follows its owner beyond public thoroughfares and into private residences, doctors' offices, political headquarters, and other potentially revealing locales. Nearly 3/4 of smartphone users report being within 5 feet of their phones most of the time, with 12% admitting they even use their phones in shower. A car has little capacity for escaping public scrutiny based on plain view doctrine that we've gone over in this video. Accordingly, when the government tracks the location of a cell phone, which is quite often not subject to plain view doctrine, because the majority of the time you have it in your pocket or inside your house, yet it can still be tracked far more intimately than something that is subject to plain view doctrine, such as the juxtaposition vehicle. Accordingly, when the government tracks the location of a cell phone, it achieves near perfect surveillance, as if it had attached an ankle monitor to the phone users. Moreover, the retrospective quality of the data here gives police access to a category of information otherwise unknowable The government can now travel back in time to trace a person's whereabouts, subject only to the retention policies of the wireless carriers. Whoever the suspect turns out to be, he has effectively been tailed every moment of every day, and the police may, in government's view, call upon the result of that surveillance without regard to the constraint of the Fourth Amendment. Only the few without cell phones could escape this tireless and absolute surveillance. Accordingly, when the government accessed CSLI from the wireless carrier, it invaded Carpenter's reasonable expectation of privacy in the whole of his physical movement. The third-party doctrine, which is basically a doctrine that says if I have your information on my device or my possession, then it is my possession of my property now. That is what state actors have lobbied judicial interpretation of legislature to create a doctrine for, in an attempt to justify the collection of data. And this res judicata, this quote, judge-made law, this decision that has been made and put to rest certain issues, such as that of privacy, states that the third-party doctrine partly stems from the notion that an individual has a reduced expectation of privacy and information knowingly shared with another. But the fact of diminished privacy interest does not mean that the Fourth Amendment falls out of the picture entirely. This is what's happening when you voluntarily provide ID and you voluntarily allow those you provided ID to not only track you, but also track everything you are doing on your device. That's called third-party doctrine. And even then, that does not diminish privacy interest that the Fourth Amendment affords. Once more, the third-party doctrine partly stems from the notion that an individual has a reduced expectation of privacy and information knowingly shared with another. But the fact of, quote, diminished privacy interest does not mean that the Fourth Amendment falls out of the picture entirely. The ultimate measure of the constitutionality of a government search, aka telling you to provide an ID before you can use a device that you have spent your hard-earned money on, and on top of that, monitoring every activity on that device without needing to manipulate some type of root certificate or bug some type of link that you click on or do some of those silly stuff you see in movies. No, it comes with the hardware itself, and then you're forced to download apps that have backdoors, and then on top of that, you're forced to just give your identification before you start to use the device. All that falls under Fourth Amendment search and seizure, which requires warrant. Henceforth, ultimate measure of the constitutionality of a governmental search is reasonableness. Our case established that warrantless searches are typically unreasonable where a search is undertaken by law enforcement officials to discover evidence of criminal wrongdoing. And the premise of the whole protecting the minor is that there's an assumption that there's a criminal wrongdoing and everyone is guilty before innocence. And ultimately, collection of all that data is to basically use artificial intelligence to do predictive policing. Predictive policing exists for the purpose of investigating crimes. In other words, someone is saying, you have already done something wrong criminally, therefore we're going to search you and seize your information, and you will participate in it if you are aloof. So how things work and what is going on around you. Carpenter versus United States, year 2018. I implore you to take your time to sit down and read this case law. It would make an entire world of difference in your perspective of how things function in juxtaposition to you. Until next time, take care. Really, truly, best of luck.